Hey Wolfpack, and welcome back. I hope all is well, and I hope you enjoyed your week. Today, we're reading My Dad is the Best Cook in the World, written by Like I Did. Now with that said, whether you're sitting around a campfire, on the night shift, or even laying in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. It could be something as simple as a bowl of porridge on a Sunday morning, which technically is just a bowl of slime if you think about it. When my father made it, however, it would be the most delicious breakfast dish in the world. He used a special kind of oats, or maybe he bought the regular kind and made them special by cutting them even more finely. He would toast them gently to help extract their flavor, as he explained. Then, he would boil them on low heat, taking his time as he prepared whatever would accompany the oatmeal or porridge. I'm never sure what the right name is, but I guess my dad's dish would be porridge, simply because it sounds more delicious than oatmeal. My favorite kind of porridge is by far the one he calls birthday cake. He adds in vanilla, colorful sprinkles, and other stuff that I forgot, and I kid you not, it is the best breakfast in the world. I know it doesn't sound as crazily innovative as I make it out to be. I suppose it really isn't, because I can use the exact same ingredients trying to mimic his dish, and all I achieve is oat slime with some melted sprinkles. And not because I'm a bad cook. My mom, for example, is a really decent cook as well, but she can never reach the explosion of flavors in a dish quite the same as my dad. Nobody can. You're such a liar! He can't be the best in the world. Also, you've never even left town. How would you know, Chris? That's what my disbeliever of a classmate, Toby, said after I told everyone that I knew for a fact that my dad was the best cook in the world, and that one day he would travel to every country in existence to battle the best chefs on Earth. Back then, we were around 6 or 7, and I had realized that my dad, being such a genius, was definitely something I had to use to impress everyone in elementary school with. And everyone believed me, saying how cool that was as if my dad was a superhero. Except for the little know-it-all Toby, of course. If something is the best, you can tell, Toby. It's not that hard. And also, everyone who comes to visit us says so too. So what? Anyone that visits is from here too, so they don't know the world, stupid. Shut up, Toby! He was right. Nobody who lived here ever left town and came back, so they really wouldn't know. And we never would have gotten visitors from the outside. I still didn't appreciate him talking back like that, though. Toby was the biggest know-it-all of our class, and I was probably the biggest liar. We would bicker about stuff all the time, for years, which might make it more surprising than we somehow ended up becoming best friends. But now, 10 years later, we are practically inseparable, and thanks to our friendship, Toby even had the luck of trying Dad's food from time to time. He still thinks saying that he is the best in the world is an exaggeration, but simply because he doesn't like to admit that I'm right. If you think that breakfast sounded good, you should see what my father comes up with for dinner. Well, not see, you should taste it. Though, I'm afraid that's impossible. Dad only makes dinner for us on very rare occasions. He works a lot, and when he comes home, he's usually too tired to cook. So, we only get a home-cooked dinner by my father when we get visitors. Visitors that are from our town, always, never from the outside. A lot of them I know quite well. It's usually the same group, a circle of my friends of my parents. They have this dinner party once or twice a year, and it's always at our house because everyone agrees that Dad is the best cook of them all. They spend other events together as well, at other homes or places, but when it comes to dinner, it is always our home. The dinner parties are very similar each time, for me at least. The guests arrive, I say hello, they ask me embarrassingly boring questions about life and school, and then I go back up to my room. I never join them for dinner. Instead, Dad brings me up a plate of food that I eat in my room, which I certainly prefer and am thankful for. Often Toby comes over as well, and we hang out in my room while my parents have their party downstairs. Dad was hesitant at first when I'd ask if Toby could come as well, but as we got older, he agreed it was fine, as long as we didn't disturb the party. It kind of has become our tradition to play video games or listen to music in my room, and eat Dad's amazing food, while my parents practice their own tradition downstairs. These nights might sound a little mundane, but I used to love every part of them. They've been the same for years now, except for last night. Last night, things changed. As before every dinner party, Dad had been in the kitchen all day cooking while Mom decorated the dining room. I helped a little by chopping some vegetables and washing a few dishes in the afternoon. In the evening, before the guests arrived, Toby rang our bell, and the two of us went up to my room to play a new Nintendo game that Toby got as a gift from his uncle. He always gave Toby the best gifts, but he recently moved away from this town. We got so into the game that I didn't even realize how much time had passed until Dad knocked on the door. As soon as it opened, a sweet smell spread through my room. Hints of cardamom, nutmeg, and, most prominently, pumpkin. "Whoa, that smells amazing, Mr. Milner. What did you make?" "Oh, just some mashed potatoes with pumpkin and greens." We both knew whatever he made was far more special than that. Even when he used the most boring ingredients, he knew how to mix spices so perfectly that they tasted otherworldly. But when Dad said those words, he didn't sound like he was trying to be humble. He seemed exhausted, which was reflected through the empty look in his eyes. I got up to take the tray off his hand that had the bowls of soup and 2 big plates full of dishes my dad had been cooking all day. "You alright, Dad?" "Oh, I'm fine. Fine, just tired. Lots of cooking. Anyway, you know the rules. Enjoy the food, but stay in your room, alright?" We both nodded. After the door was closed again, I put the tray next to Toby and sat down. "Your dad seemed weird," he said. "I don't think he likes dinner parties very much. He has to work and everyone else just stuffs their faces. Or maybe he's not much of a swinger and your mom makes him." Tony grinned. "For the 100th time, my parents aren't swingers." "Right. So why else are we not supposed to see what they're doing down there?" "Fuck off. Do you want to have dinner with all those old people? They're doing us a favor." "Right. Dinner." He grinned again. There was no part of me that believed that my parents were actually swingers, but Toby dared me to go and look, and I wasn't scared to walk around in my own house. So why wouldn't I go check? That's what I said to him, at least. Tried to act cool, but some part of me was really afraid of whatever was going on down there. You see, these parties have become such a normal event in our lives that I sometimes forget, or try to suppress how weird they really are. First of all the guests arrived totally overdressed in cocktail attire, and too much makeup. Everyone seems far too excited with big smiles that appear forced. My mother is one of them, and enjoys the night to the fullest. My dad is more reserved. One person always brings a big package. I've never seen what's in it though. That is usually all I see before going to my room. As I was tiptoeing down the stairs for the first time during a dinner party, my heart started beating so rapidly that I feared it might overshadow the classical music coming from our living room. "Are you scared?" A voice whispered in my ear as 2 hands grabbed under my shoulder. I turned around to see the dark eyes of my friend and a massive grin on his face. "You were meant to be upstairs, dickhead," I whispered. I didn't want to miss the old guys going crazy. Old? Now that's a bit rude, don't you think? This time, the voice wasn't coming from Toby, but Mrs. Callis, a friend of my parents, and a dinner guest, who apparently just walked out of the bathroom. "Oh, hi, sorry, Mrs. Callis. We just came down to..." I started muttering. I don't know why I felt so nervous. This was my home after all. But something about her big, widened eyes and the smeared lipstick around her mouth was extremely unnerving. "Oh, don't apologize, dear. You two are quite grown up now after all. I don't understand why your parents hide you in your room all night. I say you join us for dinner starting now. Come on." She grabbed first my hand, then Toby's. My friend and I exchanged a look of fear and curiosity. Look who I just found lurking in the halls. Mrs. Callis laughed loudly as we approached the living room. My mother had really outdone herself with the decorations. Big candles everywhere, black tissues formed into pretty shapes, the chandelier above the table dimmed to a warm yellow. The only thing outshining the decoration was the food on the table. My eyes met the one of my mother, who looked less angry than I imagined. Actually, everyone looked at us smiling. They didn't seem that annoyed that we were interrupting, and luckily, nobody was naked. Why don't we make some space for the kids? Let them enjoy the delicious meal with us for once. They look quite grown up to me, Mrs. Callis said, and everyone started mumbling. Chris, Toby, do you want to sit with us? My mother asked in a nervous tone. I looked over at my father, whose face had turned completely pale. Just as before, he had a strange look in his eyes, but now I realized that it wasn't exhaustion, it was fear. No, that's okay. We still have our food upstairs, I said. Nonsense, Mrs. Callis said. We have 2 empty seats right here. Tonight you will join us. End of discussion. It seemed way more normal than I'd have imagined at first, until they all started digging into the food as if they were starving animals, ripping off huge bites with their teeth, swallowing whole chunks of meat, and pouring it all down with red wine. No matter how wonderful I normally thought my father's cooking was, at the sight of this, I felt a bit appalled, especially when I saw that my mother ate just as disgustingly. My mother, who normally was so incredibly proper and perfect. Only my dad was not focused on the food. He was staring at me and his eyes were saying, "Run." Toby looked as if he found the whole event rather amusing and not as creepy or disgusting as it felt to me. I suppose he still thought they would start going wild soon. And in a way, they were, I suppose, just not the way we imagined. You're not eating, sweetie. Why is that? Your father's cooking is simply divine. Mrs. Callis chuckled with her mouthful. She then proceeded to load a big spoon of shepherd's pie onto my plate. I didn't answer, but quietly took a small bite out of it. It tasted amazing, of course, like everything Dad makes. But I didn't see this dish on the tray that he brought upstairs for us. When I looked at all the food in front of us, I noticed something. The food my father had been cooking today, the potatoes and pumpkin mash, and caramelized onions, and the roasted asparagus with sauce hollandaise. He had prepared them perfectly on the plates for Toby and me. But now, I realized that none of the food he had cooked was on this table, and suddenly, I completely lost my appetite. My father was trying to warn us. The guests we have once or twice a year are friends of my parents, not by choice, I suppose. Their families have been part of this town for as long as it existed, and so have our ancestors. In a way, I suppose we are part of some kind of elite, although I never really felt like it, especially because of my dad, who is an incredibly down-to-earth person. I always thought the only reason he did these parties was for my mother, but as it turns out, there was another reason. Toby was the first one to leave. He asked to stay over, but I told him I wasn't feeling too well. The other guests stayed until late at night, having the best time you could imagine. My mother went to bed, exhausted with a full stomach, while Dad sat in the kitchen scrubbing the floor. The entire house was quiet and dark at this point. He thought I'd gone to bed as well. Monotonously, he scrubbed a stain on the wooden ground. "Dad?" I asked, my entire body trembling. He didn't even look at me. "You need to understand, Chris. We have been part of this community for a very long time," he said, his eyes still glued to the floor. "It is not a choice at this point. They tell us the date, and we prepare. That's how we stay well and safe." Finally, he looked at me. "We are lucky that they enjoy my cooking skills, because that way we stay needed. I just wish your mother wouldn't enjoy it so much as well." Once or twice a year, we have a dinner party at our house. My father spends all day preparing food that only me and sometimes my friend Toby eat. As the guests arrive, however, they bring one other special ingredient. Once or twice a year, we have a dinner party at our house. Coincidentally, once or twice a year, somebody moves away from this town, and they never come back. Luckily, I'm a pretty decent liar, because I have no clue how I would ever be able to explain to Toby that he devoured his uncle for dinner last night. Thanks for watching, Wolfpack. If you want to catch me by the fire next time, I upload every weekend including Friday. Don't forget to like the video as it helps me out more than you know. If you want to submit your story, head down to the description. Now, here's Roken to howl you off to sleep. Have beautiful nightmares.